In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at these current conditions. We are going to dive into an upcoming pattern that is going to feature a pattern change where the cold air and storminess is going to flip out west. And then towards the end, there is some signs that it might flip again back east. So everybody's going to get their fair share of precipitation, it appears. Here we are taking a look at our current conditions, though, and we'll take a look at all that later on. We do see that throughout the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley and interior Northeast, we have plenty of storminess taking place here. A lot of snowfall, some heavy showers in there as well. Pretty interesting weather. We also have these showers that are narrowly impacting the United States there in very far eastern Maine, but mostly there for Canada. And then we have some showery activity down here in Florida. But outside of that, there is not a whole lot going on. We'll start with this down here and we'll work our way northward, I guess. We can see that there is some lighter showers moving across the region here for the southern half of Florida. We can see these just kind of quickly moving across all south of Tampa Bay here. Basically south of I-4, it seems like is the exact border of where you're either seeing dry conditions or this showery activity. None of this appears to be in the form of thunderstorms except down here in the Everglades right here. It seems like these are a little bit heavier than the rest, and that might be causing some thunder to occur. And obviously, as we reach the daytime highs, you might see some heavier thunderstorms move through. But for now, at least during the morning and overnight hours, it has been primarily showers taking place there. Now, as we move our way northward, we'll take a look at this. So we'll start with the least and then the most impactful stuff here. But we can see that there are some heavier showers racing across to the north, kind of impacting very far eastern Maine, like I mentioned. With a few of those hitting, especially earlier on, but it's pretty much dried up. This is all moving slightly eastward, so over time this will become, mostly for these areas, and then eventually primarily for these areas, and then eventually it'll just be gone. Now, we can see this area here of storminess with this Arctic blast that has just come through has allowed for some snowfall to happen in some very interesting areas. So we'll talk about these. Let's just zoom into some individual regions. Here we can see a lot of snowfall racing southward from Canada into this very eastern region here of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We're getting some heavy snowfall here right near I-75 there. We're seeing heavy snowfall falling down. It looks like it is potentially mixing with some rainfall there as there is some green around. But for the most part, I think this is some heavy snowfall that's coming down. Now, it depends where you're at, but here near Marquette, here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, we do have some lake effect showers, whether that's in the form of rainfall or snowfall. There is some lake effect occurring. And if it is in the form of snowfall, I would expect that it is quite heavy. Same thing here, especially here actually, near Grayling and northward of there, near Young State Park there. All of these areas in here, we can see this lake effect banding taking place, and we can see indications that there's a very heavy band set up right here where my cursor is right now. And if this area is in the form of snowfall, that is very high DBZ snowfall taking place. Definitely worth noting that that is a heavy band of lake effect if that is in the form of snowfall. Down further south in the lower peninsula of Michigan, I am assuming, and the radar is as well, that this is all in the form of rainfall. But if you do live in this region, correct me if I'm wrong, we do see on the very western edge here, we can see that there is lake effect showers taking place. Again, whether it's in the form of rainfall or snowfall, it is taking place. And especially here near Cleveland, I don't know either if this is in the form of frozen precipitation or rainfall, but it is very heavy. We see the yellows coming down. If it's rainfall, it's probably a more moderate rainfall, but if it's snowfall where those yellows are, that is certainly very heavy snowfall. So let us know in the comments down below what you're experiencing if you're anywhere near any of these lakes. Near Erie, we did have some lake effect bands popping off earlier this morning, potentially snowfall the further inland you go, but this has kind of dried up a little bit over time. We can see for central Pennsylvania, kind of these areas in here, we've been seeing quite a bit of snowfall showers according to this radar, and the radar can be wrong with the precipitation typing. That's something that's very hard to get right, so there's a good possibility that this is kind of wrong here with where snow or rain is, so that's why I'm kind of, I'm playing it a little safe here. It could be either for anywhere really. We can see that southern Pennsylvania and more central Ohio there is seeing some light showers moving through. Pretty widespread, though. Very wintry looking, in my opinion, a lot of this activity that's taking place. We can see that the very, very, very mountainous regions of West Virginia are seeing snowfall throughout the day today. So these areas are very high elevation. I just had to drive actually through these regions. I'll show you exactly where I drove through. I-64 here, down through here, up through here. I took this route here. So you can see that near Beckley and all these areas where I crossed, they're kind of seeing some frozen precipitation in there. I can say this for sure. Those mountains, even along the highway on 64, are very, very intense up and down. So if you've ever been through that highway, it is a beautiful drive, and the foliage was absolutely stunning. But it is very crazy elevation stuff going on, so I'm not surprised about the frozen precipitation. I don't want to talk too much about myself there, but it is interesting to note that the elevation is insane for these regions, so it's not a huge surprise that they're seeing snowfall in those areas. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the upcoming pattern, where we'll talk about that flip to the west, and then potentially a big flip to the... Now, what we're going to see here, as we just move on with our precipitation, is things stay very, very quiet until about Friday, Saturday time frame, and that's when we see our first storm move out west. The cold has lifted off from the east by the weekend, and we're going to see this big time first snowstorm move south. They're going to do a lot of this kind of tracking. We're going to see a lot of that. Sometimes we'll see it move in more like this and move out like this, but overall they're going to be doing something similar to what I just showed. So we see this one move down, bringing heavy, heavy, heavy snowfall for a lot of areas here in the Rockies. We'll take a look at the total snowfall in a little while. We do get a nor'easter here in the eastern United States, approximately Sunday, October 23rd. Definitely worth noting that there could be some coastal storminess along the eastern United States. Even though most of the activity is out west, that doesn't mean all of the activity is out west, if that makes sense. Now let's continue on. Actually, it is worth noting this is a 983 millibar low pressure center that has taken this track. Usually this is the worst track for blizzards or storms out west. You get this horseshoe, which obviously this increases the amount of time that these areas in the middle see snowfall, because when the low pressure system's here, they're seeing snowfall on the eastern end of the storm. When it's south of you, you're seeing snowfall on the northern end of the storm. And then once it gets to the east of you, you're still seeing snowfall on the western edge of the storm. So all along this horseshoe, which takes longer than obviously a straight line would, you're seeing that snowfall. So this can lead towards days of snowfall at times and feet of snowfall to occur. This is a classic Rockies blizzard potentially. And we do see that this hovers around the lower 80s, 980s here. We see a 982 here. This brings a lot of storminess in general for areas around it. So this is a high precipitation, low pressure system. And again, still bringing snowfall to a lot of these areas here, even as this low pressure system has moved far east of the Rockies. We do see that this nor'easter activity has also spread in through the northeastern United States. That's again worth noting. That's Monday, October 24th. And then by Tuesday, we see this is finally lifted off. It kind of tries to develop a cold front here. Maybe a lot of the cold air pouring a little bit further eastward. We could see quite a bit of storminess moving in through these regions. Potential for severe weather, as this appears to be a very high precipitation cold front potentially down here. We can see the low pressure system has dropped even further to a 979 millibar low pressure center, bringing tons of snowfall for the central regions of Canada there. Very stormy look here. We see our next storm moving out west, our next potential big snowstorm as we're in this very active pattern. We see our cold front in the east has spread through. There is some cold air spreading into the east, but this does not mean the activity stops out west, because we do have a very strong low pressure system there by Wednesday, October 26th in the 990s, which is not a 980 or 970 millibar low pressure center, obviously, but it is still very strong. We're seeing plenty of snowfall here for the northern Rockies here. This one's a little bit further north, I would say. Then we get this low. It's a bit weaker, but we get another cold front here developing with it. Potential for snowfall here in the north central United States. But this one really pulls the cold air eastward. We can see that there's a bit of a ridge developing out west, and then a bit of a trough here in the central United States. And we still have the ridging happening here in the eastern United States, but it appears like this cold is trying to move eastward, and this is the end of the model run. But this is a very strong indication that we're going to move back into a positive PNA, because that's what's trying to develop out here in the west. And this would, I don't know what just happened there, but this would lead towards the cold moving eastward if we get this positive P&A bubble out here, something like that. It forces the cold air to move around this air mass, and it looks like this model around 10 days from now wants to develop that pattern back, which, since we've seen a lot of that this fall, I would say is a pretty semi-likely thing to happen. It just depends, obviously, if this sticks around on the model run or if this is a one-hit wonder on the model here. We'll have to wait and see. Total precipitation through the next 10 days due to all of what we just saw. If you're anywhere in the whites, you're seeing practically no precipitation. Your grays will be 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. Now, total snowfall here, obviously very extreme out west. If you're anywhere in the grays, we're seeing a dusting. If anything, your blues will be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Your purples will be 6 to 10. Your pinks there will be 10 to 20. And then your pastel blues at least will be about 20 to 30 inches of snowfall. And then your pastel pinks and purples here, which what I'm saying is kind of these up here, what you're seeing in the middle. So we see some of these very small areas of it throughout the Rockies. That's going to be 30 inches plus, 30 to 48 inches of snowfall. So yes, very, very large amounts of snowfall expected out west with 2 very, very major snowstorms at least. Now, for the temperature pattern, we're obviously in a deep Arctic blast here in the eastern United States. We see far below normal temperatures. Your greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Your blues in there being 15 to 25 degrees below what is normal for this area, for all of these areas during this time of year. So very, very extreme cool down here we're seeing. And still a very strong and healthy positive P&A out west, which is, again, what forces the cold air to move around that warm air that we see in those regions. But we will see over time this cool down begins to die down later this week. This is Friday the 21st. And we see the first signs of the ending positive P&A around this time. We see cooler air starting to spread throughout the west, so a negative P&A establishing itself. All of this warm air that came from the positive P&A is forced eastward, and this cold air is dying out. So this is kind of a very, very key indication that we're seeing a negative P&A developing, and we fully see it developed here, which basically brings things in the opposite way. The warm air down south is forced to move around this cold air mass, so it's forced into the eastern United States. You see how the P&A dictates everything? It either forces the cold air down into the eastern United States or the warm air up into the eastern United States, but it all starts in the west because everything in the weather moves from west to east, so that makes it kind of easy. Look at it as like a downstream movement. So west is upstream, east is downstream. So things are always kind of moving in this way. So when you have the cold air here that's in the way, the warm air moves up because it has to go somewhere. So it goes like that. As time moves on, we see that we fully move into a negative P&A pattern with the warm air everywhere throughout the eastern 2/3 of the nation. And it sticks this way. We do get some cold air at times spreading into both, which is pretty rare but not impossible. But what I see here at the end that's very interesting is we see these beginning signs of a positive P&A coming back. You see how there's little bits of warm air in there, potential for a positive P&A to redevelop. And the interesting thing is right around this time we have a low right here with a cold front underneath, and this cold air is on the move. The heart of this cold air right here is what was over the west coast. So it has definitely shifted quite a bit. And if it can fully move over here and we see an opportunity for warm air to develop over here, we could just get locked back into a positive P&A pattern. So that's why I think a big pattern change, too, at least, actually. So we see the pattern flip out west and then back east. This is why I think all these things will happen. Anyway, I hope this made sense. I know it's a little bit confusing when you're seeing multiple different pattern changes within one video, but that is what's expected over the next 10 days. So a big flip-flop of a pattern. And again, hopefully it made sense. So anyway, guys, be sure to subscribe because we do upload every single day. To keep up to date with these patterns, we will always be showing you guys all of this stuff every single day throughout the year and the years to come, hopefully. Also, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video.